Welcome to TruthStream. Once again, we are back with Dr. Scott Young. Now, some may know him as the Dream Killer, but we're not focused on that today. We have a lot of great things in store for you, and we're just going to see where this goes. Starting off with
XRP. It's on the mind.
And the CBDC.
And Fed now.
Fed now, yeah.
You know,
all kinds of things.
Interesting price action, but you know, what's your 30,000-foot view here?
Please.
So, I mean, the first thing, I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about a lot of areas in here, but I guess what I do want to deal with the topic of the day. What is today? The 23rd.
Sunday, 23rd.
Yeah, so like there's a lot of weird news going on today. I mean, I know there's a lot of videos out there that Trump was supposed to be back today, you know, and we're kind of wondering about stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of weird.
I don't think I heard.
Yeah, we've been
Oh
working.
yeah, there's some real weird stuff like, oh, Trump was supposed to be back today. You know, the world's kind of on edge. But there's a one very sad kind of thing. You know, Mr. Trumptastic, guy named Darren, in the LA area. There's a guy named John Dowling, and Darren is Mr. Trumptastic. So he's a financial guy, one of the few financial guys who truly got the Nesara and some of the RV kind of things. But he's more in the RV kind of area, but he really got some of this stuff, but he was really on the Trump kind of thing, and he had the full picture of it. And he and I talked a bit. We didn't talk a lot, but we talked kind of bit. But our connection was through John. And John and I actually had done 2 or 3 videos together, and John and I have talked quite a bit. And but I had known that Darren had gotten sick, and Darren really didn't like physicians. And so he had been trying to do his own way of getting better, but he had stage 4 cancer and really didn't trust any of the physicians. And I know he just got married not but months ago. I don't know exactly when that was. But he passed away early this morning. And I know John was with him, was talking to him about the Lord. We just pray, you know, that he met the Lord. But man, I was just really hoping that he would have had that chance to see, you know, the EBS and this transition to the Nesara stuff. I mean, it's kind of like seeing, you know, like my Denver Nuggets, the first time they got to the NBA finals, and to see them go all the way and win the finals, right? And it's the same kind of thing like that. And I kind of got pissed off tonight because there was a big to-do. You know, we put it out on our Telegram channel that he passed away. Nicholas Vienneman put it out there pretty hard on that. And then some people were like, well, you know, he's in witness protection, he's not dead. And I was like, shut up. And, you know, just real stupid stuff. And so I pushed it out there. You know, I know John, and I know that he was talking to him in his last hours. You know, just guys, can we just be nice to the family here? And he's one of those kind of guys that, you know, he was a real truther. And there's been a lot of truthers who have passed away in this time frame. So it's really tough to kind of see that. So that was one area.
We met him down at he was part of the Truth Tour, and we met him down in Anaheim. Didn't talk to him too much. I mean, everybody was kind of doing their thing and they were busy, but well, thank you for sharing that with us. I only heard about that just from you.
Sorry to hear it, but yeah.
Right. So
it is interesting, some of these hot takes that can be a little bit irritating. You know, centered around the movie Sound of Freedom, there's an awful lot of theories, and it's like, can't we just take the win just for a minute?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I get it. We need to be suspicious of these things. I understand that. But you know, the best they've got so far is that this is the Masonic plan to chip children. So,
Right.
but they're going to give up a multi-billion-dollar trafficking business to chip children. I mean, you could just tell parents you should chip your children. They probably would do it. You know, I mean,
Right.
it doesn't add
chipping
up.
doesn't pay what the other stuff does.
Yeah.
Right. And there's just so much, there's so many silly things that can we just focus in on, you know, what we know, okay? And it's easy to do the rumors, it's easy to make stuff up, you know, but when you don't know stuff about things. I mean, I get this stuff all the time. I know you guys I get rumors all the time. People would say stuff like, don't you, and they call me a grifter. I sell nothing.
Yeah.
I get called grifter all the time. And I'm like, dude, you don't even know what a grifter means. If I sell nothing, that means I can't be a grifter, you know, kind of thing. You know, it's the same kind of thing when, you know, when we make stuff up about truthers. And so let's be nice to the family, okay? Let's be nice to his memory in that way.
Definitely. And for the record, I never believed for a minute that you were born a woman.
There you go.
I missed that one right off the bat.
Yeah. So skip that one. I will tell you a funny story though. I am like 132nd, I think, or 164th. I cannot remember. I've lost the track of it. Indian. I'm Cherokee. And when I was in high school, I used to, when I was in high school, I was in theater all the time. And so I have real high cheekbones, the real Indian cheekbones. And I caught a glimpse of myself in theater, and they would put like rouge on here, and I looked like a girl. I hated it. I got so pissed. And so after that, I always did the makeup on myself because I would never let anyone touch me again, you know, at that point. So there you go. So I was a little girlish at that time.
Do you have any great recipes for the Powwow Chow cookbook? Because
I didn't have any. I mean, I have more Indian in me than some of the chiefs in there, but no one ever signed me up when I was a kid. I mean, holy cow!
I have a tiny bit myself of Cherokee, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, I totally have enough in me to get on the rolls, but I don't have any. I was never signed up in that way.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, shall we transition into the speaking of transition?
Yeah, speaking of transition, we just got to tell you that David Nino Rodriguez. Well, he was telling me about
2 months ago
some transvestigation website or whatever.
Poncho, whatever. I put out a short interview yesterday, just me solo. Sometimes I go on a little rant. And yeah, some guy, you know, there's these transvestigation channels, and this guy's, I don't know, it's like Poncho Pete or whatever. And I'm going through, and it's like, it's all of them. The names, those whose names start with D. And I'm like, I'm going through it. And I'm like, well, really?
No, you're missing the funny part though. Because I was telling him, I'm like, yeah, I'll bet they think David, I was just thinking a really masculine guy off the top of my head. And I said, I'll bet they think David Rodriguez is a woman. And he sends me the transvestigation, you know, where they're circling his bodily features.
Picture. Yeah. Because I saw it 2 months ago. I think I thought I had already told him, and maybe I didn't. But yeah, and so I literally took the picture of what, and I'm like, well, here it is. Here's what you're actually talking about. And so it just it kind of negates the entire movement. Like, look, yeah, we know some of them are inverted, likely. But I mean, it's everyone. This is what I wanted to say. This is what I forgot to say. There's got to be some groupies out there that have either slept, you know, like the Mick Jaggers or somebody that know damn well that a guy has some twig and berries down there. And not, you know, not everybody can be born, you know, anyway. Yeah.
But Rodriguez has more testosterone than some zip codes, for crying out loud. I mean,
come on. But that's Hollywood. Let's leave Hollywood alone. You know, like everyone else is normal. Okay.
Yeah.
It's what a circus.
I mean, there is some of that. I don't want to completely negate it.
No, there's definitely,
but there isn't a weird obsession with it, and it's gotten so convoluted that you can't trust any of the information. It seems.
Yeah, like we could look at the Michelle
Except
Obama.
for Michelle Obama, that was obvious.
Yeah.
That one's
mostly. But you know, when you really listen to the statistics of the world, I mean, even when we all grew up, they would tell you that the statistics of gay was 10%. And the reality is that it's less than 3%.
Yeah.
Less than. The transvestite thing is really less than 1%.
Yeah.
Did you hear
Like
also that
100%.
Brown University now 40% of the kids are talking about that they might be
Why?
LGBTK or whatever, and you're like, I'm not even doing the numerology right or whatever you want to say about it.
LGBTK. Burger
And
kicked in on it now.
I did it wrong. So, whatever you are. And I'm like going, who cares?
Yeah.
And so I know we're going off on a tangent here, but I'm going, guys, I don't care what you are. And the reality is you got a problem up here.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't care. And I think when this thing flips after the EBS, what we're gonna find is that no one's gonna give a rip about you on that stuff. Okay. I don't care. And many of these normalized the situation of someone who's really gay, they're going, man, we don't walk down the street and talk about how gay we are. We don't walk down the street and talk about how heterosexual you are.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, I guess the thing about the flags in people's yards, it's having to explain that to your child, and then it's like, oh, so that's what you do in your bedroom. I really don't want to. I don't want. A private life is a private life for a reason.
They had a giant rainbow flag on the Tacoma Dome, I noticed today. So,
Yeah, and you're just going, it never has to, it's never needed to be here. And so I think the pendulum has swung over here, and of course it's the stupid. So what we're going to see, and the pendulum has swung over there, and it obviously is a spiritual issue. We're going to see that pendulum swing very hard in the other direction. Mm-hmm. Now, pendulums, when they swing hard to the other direction. And the people who are kind of in the middle are going to be a little uncomfortable either way. They always will be. Okay. Yeah. And most Americans are kind of sitting in the middle of this. And so they're uncomfortable with the middle ground. Now, people who are on either side of that area, they're comfortable when it comes to them, when it comes to their side. Okay. But the reality is most people are sitting in the middle ground of it. And they're going, can it please be just normalized? I just want to go to work.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I think the reality is what most people need to do is look at this and say, wait a second, why does it have to go here? And when it swings over, we have to say, why is it swinging over? And we have to stop and have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
So that's what's coming. And that's why we have to, it's swung over here to this weirdo left side, and we have to stop and say, no, this doesn't represent me. When it swings over here, we have to say, why does it swing over here? What does it do to represent me? And so that's what's also happening here as well. So it's happening when we have this EBS. And I was talking to SG Anon, who has a little bit different viewpoint of an elongated time frame of this. And I love SG, don't get me wrong here, okay? He has a much more elongated time frame of how long it might take versus Derek and I were talking on Friday night.
That's Derek Johnson, right?
Derek Johnson, okay. Yeah. He and I have more of a little bit less elongated time frame.
That's where Scott and I are and want to be more interested.
And I'm much more of that because I see more things happening, because the reality is when you look at places like the Ukraine, I see more CGI. I don't see as much. I see the stuff already done.
Yeah.
Do you remember a truther who died? To use another example, there was a truther named Kristen W.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So she died what, a year and a half ago, something?
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah, ish, 2 years ago.
Something. And she was talking about an invasion in Taiwan with China. And she was talking, this was, I don't know, 2.5 years ago or so. And she was talking about it, that it was actually happening. And I believe that most of this stuff has been done a long time ago. So to some extent, this stuff was done. And so we're seeing some of the after effects of it. There have been videos that we've seen that in Kiev, it's much more, looks pretty darn peaceful than it is in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you're going, wait a second, what's happening? So we're seeing a disconnect in that. And so yes, there's unrest here, but is it done? So some of the war that's happening is, of course, is an underground war. And so why do we have this problem? The problem is to get out the cabal, right? So that's what we're dealing with. And so and why hasn't it happened yet? It's because we still haven't taken care of the full extent of the ugliness. So I think that I always kind of say it this way: there's the military and there's the financial edge of this. These two things are sitting hand in hand. And I always talk about this. The military is always hurry up and wait. Financial people always think this way. They think in the middle of the month, and they get really antsy in the middle of the month. Okay, we're in the 23rd of the month, and they get really antsy in the end of the month. Mm. They just do. Yeah. And so if your month is going along good from a business level, you're thinking, good, we're having a good month. But if you're having a kind of a slow month, like for instance, in my private practice, we're having kind of a slow month this month. And I'm thinking about it on the 23rd, okay? So I'm thinking about how slow of a month this is. Just happens. So there's always business cycles, okay? So I'm thinking about how slow of a month it is. And so it plays in my mind. So Sunday night into Monday, I'm thinking, what do I have to do? It's the 23rd into the 24th. There's only a week and a day left. What do we have to do? What do we have to stir up? And so there's a stirring that keeps happening in you. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so if we get to Wednesday, there's more stirring. There's more stirring because business has to happen so that we can make payroll and things like that happens, right? Mm-hmm. That same tension comes into the realm of every single financial person. That means banking people. Yeah. That means every money person in the history of the world. And that is on the other side of the money, of the military people. And see, people are not thinking that way exactly. So I talk to military people and they're going, you money people are nuts. And the money people are looking at the military people and going, yeah, but just hurry up and get it done. And so they really don't understand each other. My camera moves all over the place here.
Yeah, that's all right.
But that's some of the tension that goes along. Mm-hmm. So that's why we sometimes get this fit and start response, and it feels like we're there, and then it stops. Yeah. Doesn't that feel like it?
Oh yeah, a lot. Yeah. Like with this massive thing happened, and but is there any follow? Is there anything going on after it?
And then we're like,
it's like it's happening.
And then it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's because and this is just a belief. Okay. And I don't see, I always tell people all the time, I literally have said this. I mean, my wife is sitting in the room with me, and she's listening along, and she's heard me say this a billion times. Okay. And people ask me how, I mean, when is this going to happen? I say there's 10 people in the world that know the time frame, and I'm not one of them.
Right.
And so I go, listen, these people don't even exactly know the date.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Q team that, they probably put out there 15, 20 different dates to kind of say, well, it could be any one of these dates. And then they kind of put it out there to obfuscate. And so they're kind of putting out their dates to kind of, get you on, in hope. They don't want you hopeless, but there's a point of faith that you're building up, that you don't want to be hopeless, because if you have no hope, what would happen is that we would be running out there with the millions of guns, and we would be shooting up everything.
Mm-hmm.
See, that would be a really bad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what has to happen is you have to give enough faith in the systems that the paramilitary people don't run off, and frankly, the patriots, the other patriots out there, would rise up and start washing out what the real military is really trying to do. So that's why I think that, and I'm pretty darn positive we're that close. The other reason why that we have to look at this, and a friend of mine, Mark Z, talks a little bit about this, is you have to look at the fundamentals. So I'm giving him credit for this kind of thing too. The fundamentals say that we are at the dead end of this.
Yep.
I talked to three different groups of people: commercial real estate people, just the private real estate people, and I talked to auto people. And those three industries are actually very, very interesting industries. Those are high-end price points. There is zero sales going on in them.
Yep.
And the only sales that are happening, though, of the first two, is if you're moving from San Francisco to Denver, and you have to buy a house. And so you have no choice but to buy a house. But guess what's happening is you're having to sell your house at 3%. You had to buy, you bought it at 3%, and you buy it in Denver, and you go from San Francisco, so that's a lot better price, and you buy it in Denver, and you get it, and you're buying it at 7% interest rate, or 7 or 8. But you're happy, at least you got it at 7%, but because you went down in price from San Francisco to Denver, so that's at least more helpful with that. But real estate in most of these towns is sitting, in commercial real estate is sitting with 30, 40, 50% empty space.
Mm-hmm.
In San Francisco right now, they're just completely empty. And you can't have that, because sales tax is what drives the state's income.
Yeah.
And if the state has no income, they have nothing. Number one income flow comes from auto sales. The number two income flow comes from house sales. It's number one from auto sales, actually.
And is that new cars primarily, or
new and used cars?
Either one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Either one. So it doesn't matter because and you normally get it. So in some states, it happens when you buy the car is when you pay your sales tax. Okay. In other states, it's when you go and do the tag, you get the tag, then you pay the tax. Okay. So it depends on which state you go to, right? So and so sometimes, for instance, in Oklahoma, you pay the tax only when you get the tag. But in other states, you pay the tax when you buy the car. And so, it just depends on how that goes. But, so every time that they don't do car sales, it's reducing it down. But something interesting is also happening in some of the sales points that are happening in private home sales and in commercial sales. The very rich are walking out and pulling money out of the banks because the Silicon Valley Bank is going down. Yeah. So what they're doing is they're taking money out of the bank, totally scared of the banking industry, and they're dropping it on any type of real estate.
True.
So what's happening is they're just dropping on real estate. So some real estate agencies are making some money off of that, but they're not buying. They're not doing any home loans. They're not doing any commercial loans. So they're not doing a loan, but they're buying in cash.
Yeah.
So people tell me, well, there's sales going on, but it's not sales in a way that is really growing the market. And so, your real estate, some of your real estate agents are making some money, but it's not in a really good way. And so what happens, it's scary when you think about it. And so what happens is the cog in the wheel is starting to come off with that. And so you can't go that much longer to see that happen. So when I hear people say Trump in 2024, and I'm going, okay, so if he stole the election in 2020 and we stole the election in 2022, you think they're not going to steal it in 2024?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
They are.
like, come on.
We can't go until 2024. That's just not.
And by the way, Trump keeps telling you he stole it in 2020.
Yeah.
Right. He does keep telling us that.
And by the way, and so we have mainstream media, and we even have semi-patriots. Okay. And I don't mean to throw these guys under the bus, but Dan Bongino, right? And some of the Fox Newsy kind of guys, that's the some of the guys, I'm trying to think of some of these guys, but I don't listen to them a lot. But
the five, maybe.
Roger, who's the guy? Stone. I'm blanking the guy that went to jail for him.
Roger Stone.
Roger Stone, yeah. He talks about, Trump 2024, and I'm going, okay, don't you see it? We're not worried about Trump in 2024. We can't wait, because that means Trump would be coming back in January 2025. We can't wait that long.
No, that's
Very
over
true.
a year and a half.
But
away.
there's an element of theater to all of this. It's kind of like, you mentioned the CGI in Ukraine. Well, when all the riots were happening in France, there was also a lot of conversation from people that had just been there or just arrived, and they're like, I don't see any of this going on.
Right.
So I don't know if that's theater or not. But also, I think there's starting to be a disregard for our current financial system in some of these giant companies. Like, you don't just throw away billions of dollars because you want to put a training on your beer can.
Right.
You don't just throw billions of dollars away so you can make really shitty, unpatriotic comments on Twitter if you're Ben & Jerry's, although they kind of.
But ask yourself why they're doing that.
Well, no, I'm telling you what, it's the ESG score.
Right.
So that trumps any kind of currency. The message I'm getting is the money doesn't matter to them, but their position in the future system is reliant on that ESG score. So they'll put a rainbow flag on a Raptor truck.
But if you did it, let me put it to you this way. I remember hearing about ESG stuff before. I mean, I like to watch series like, before I knew before I really was paying attention to Nesara stuff. Okay. I mean, really into it. I would watch, some of those really ritzy series like Billions and things like that. Okay. And they would tout conversations like ESG. And I really didn't understand it. And no one talked about it.
Yeah.
like an ESG score. And what it means is it's great reset conversations. You have to be environmentally, friendly kind of things. And so you want to do anything great reset kind of thing. So, be, be with the gays or be with the whatevers, and be Hollywood woke, whatever, climate friendly, whatever. And so, but see what happens is that so if you do one little thing over here, you go, if you just did your little thing once, you just said, okay, I got my butt whipped once. You'd have said, okay, if you're Budweiser and you just lost $5 billion, I don't care how much money you lost, you'd have flopped over here and stayed over there. But they didn't. It's white hats making them stay over here. Do you know why they're made to stay over here? It's because Trump's executive orders are draining the funds out of their butt. They are taking every dime from them and draining them out. And they're also telling the normies, these are the things that are not going to exist post Nesara.
This is exactly what I've felt has been going on. I mean, I'm not the only one, but I'm just saying, like, that made sense to me. They're being forced to, I mean, when Trump said everything woke turns to shit, I mean, that was kind of, a foreshadow, and he's letting you know. And now these companies, it's not like these companies like, oh, Budweiser did it a month ago, it went really bad, and we're going to try it. No, I think they're being forced to do it.
Right. And they're forced. They're forced to like keep doing it over and over again and keep doing it as dumb as stupidly as possible.
Yeah. And to wake people up.
But just to keep doing it as dumbly as possible. And so guess what happens? Like, everyone quits their companies. And then they're firing their employees because they can't keep going any farther. And then they come to a deadness.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that's fascinating when you go back and look, 1929 to 33, there was a bankruptcy phase. Mm-hmm. And what the Americans that had the money, the cabal was taking it from the Americans. We're seeing the flop of this.
Right.
So what's happening is the cabal is losing their shorts, while America, we are scooping it from them, and we're putting it in what's called the Saint Germain Fund. And so we're scooping that all up into a fund, and that is going to come back for all the debt forgiveness and for humanitarian funds. So this is part of some of that stuff that's coming out. Well, and so that's going to be the cool stuff that's going to come.
That makes sense.
I mean, with this ESG program, I think was just, if we're going to get everybody on a social credit system so that if we don't like what they tweeted on Twitter, we can shut down their electric car, which they've been mandated to drive, and they can't travel, whatever it might, the scenario might be. First, we'll set the example with our corporations, and we'll make that very important. And so I think this is almost a sarcastic doing in of these great reset people.
Yeah.
And I think it really is.
Right. And so, and then what happens? Then we have this confusion that comes up, and so the first level confusion comes when now we have the conversation when everyone was first learning of the Great Reset. We have this conversation of the central bank digital currencies, and no one knew anything about it. Okay. And by the way, that's what they've wanted to do forever. I mean, they've always wanted to have this conversation. If you go back, see, I'm a huge sci-fi fan. If you watch any sci-fi movie in the history of the world, what do they talk about as their money source? It's called credits. Every single futuristic one talks about credits. They never talk about dollars. They never talk about dong, yuan. They never use any of those commonality words. They call them credits. It's because they were trying to load into you a concept to this. So as a global concept of credits. So, and the only differentiator that ever came out is in a Star Trek Deep Space Nine with the Ferenginar group. And so they had this gold press latinum. It's a real kind of unique thing that they ever did. And it's the only, and they're the dirty Ferenginar, dirty Ferengi guys. And so that was the only one that they ever had with a gold-backed economy. It's the only one like this. As I'm telling you what, Hollywood likes to do this. And it was a gold-backed economy. And so I'm telling you, they play these games on you in different ways. Okay, you guys can watch all this stuff. Oh, yeah. And you can watch it in Hollywood and see how they look at the stuff. But so they use this concept of credits. But by the time you were learning about the Great Reset and credits, it was already dead. They had already won. Trump had already won the game before he started. I want you to think about it's like a chessboard. So Trump on his white side, he's got queen, 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 and a king, and they got pawns and a king. That's all they got.
Yeah,
that's all they started with. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they have no ability to do anything else. And people always think that they had all the ability to do everything. No, they just started with pawns. And so we just had to take them out because we tricked the game. And I always say, look, my son, we were talking about this beforehand, right? I mean, my son has the ability to kind of get into games, and he'll use all kinds of cheat codes. And because like when I want to play a game, I want to make it easy. Okay. As I have too much challenges in my life. If I really want to play a game, I just want to win. Does that make sense? I just want to win. I don't want to lose. I don't want to play that part again. So I just want to win. So that's it. Just tell me when. Okay. So so I want cheat codes. When I slice the guy, it's over and it's done. And that's what Trump has done. It's because it's too important for us to win and not lose. So when he took over and when he was taken over in 2020, in March of 2020, he actually won, and he shoved the Fed under the Treasury Department, and he already won right then.
In 2020 or 2016?
2020.
2020. Okay, I just want to make sure that. So
he shoved it under, and by that point in time, he already won. Now we've all seen the little video. This is a scary video, by the way. You guys can go watch this 100,000 times over, and it keeps popping up. September 11, 2016. If you have Hillary, she's being pushed into a van.
Right.
Now, it's a black van. I've never seen a head of state going into a van. Never. I mean, she would go into a beast, any. I don't know what else she could go into.
Yeah,
an SUV, right? An SUV, a beast, a limousine. But when would she go into a van? And she was going in, and she's being pushed into it. And think back at this. This is 2 months before the election is happening.
Right.
And I played that thing, and every truther has played that thing over and over again. She's dead before the election. They killed her before the election. Because you see pictures after it, and it's not the same person.
That same day. Yeah.
Right, the same day. What?
Mhm.
They fixed it. I mean, that is some next level thinking.
Yeah. I even heard, I could have been wrong, but I've seen that Junior may have been in that van. I'm not sure. And that's kind of why she was so startled. But I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what happened, but I'm telling you what did they do? I mean, and what's up with the, you know, the Obama stuff? And I mean, you know, how much had they done beforehand? Joe isn't Joe. I mean, and I have people arguing with me for a long time. I am an audiologist. I am an expert in ears.
Yep.
Okay. And you can't argue with me because I know from the neck up in anatomy and physiology, and he has there's two different pictures of a detached versus a detached earlobe. And I've had people like argue with me, and I'm going, I'm an audiologist, I'm an expert in ears. And they go, well, he would have had like a plastic surgery. You never have plastic surgery, and you never have stretched points. You can't do that with an audiologist. You can't do it in front of me. You can't win that argument with me. That's not the same boy.
Epstein's ears, same thing. The Epstein corpse.
It's not the same. It's not the same boy.
Right.
No. And with the Epstein thing, it's like, why would they kill the guy that has a dead man switch? There was every motivation in the world to get him the hell out of prison before he started talking, or you know, directing and releasing things. But
it's how you. I mean, here's what they're doing. They're hijacking the game before it goes. That's cheat coding.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, see, when we're upset about how long it's taken, it's where they cheat coded this sucker. And so I hate how long it is. I hate how long this has taken. I mean, we have people in bankruptcy, we have people dying. We know this is a war. I mean, I've suffered, other people have suffered around us. I mean, this is tough. This has been ugly. I don't want to live through this time frame. I don't like living this way. So many people are suffering in many ways. But if every time you see Trump or one of his actors, because you know that's not Trump every single time, he's in there like doing his little dance thing. I mean, what guy 3 days before he's about ready to get arrested does a little dance? I mean, if Scott is getting pulled over, I'm sweating bullets if I'm going to get pulled over in the road. I mean, like, I'm sweating bullets if I'm just going to get pulled over like a $200 ticket. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I love how animated your face is. I mean, you say so much with your face.
I'm like, so you know, we're missing pieces of this picture. And so I just look at this going, you're not catching it if you're not seeing behind the scrim. Okay. I'm an ex-theater guy. I'm a singer. I've been on stage a lot. I know how to see some of that stuff. And I'm a writer too. Okay. So I know how to place things in there, and I'm thinking that way. And as a writer, I'm always thinking about where you place stuff. That's the other part of this whole stuff. And so I look at the stuff, and this is just some amazing setup of this. But you need to have that level of intelligence to be able to do this.
Right.
And so you have to have that level of intelligence, and to be able to do this, it takes that level of setup to be able to do it. So
agreed.
So the other thing I know you guys wanted to talk about is FedNow and CBDCs, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, this could go a number of different ways. I think it could really elevate Ripple, and by extension XRP, given that is most likely the technology that they're that they're using. Obviously, there's a million and one reasons to hate the very idea of a CBDC. But if it's voluntary, I don't think anybody's going to be participating anyway. Very few people would be comfortable with that loss of privacy and being taxed at the transaction level and so on. It's just not worth the convenience that it otherwise offers. But because a lot of people are freaking out, but also piggybacked on this is the BRICS currency, which is asset backed.
Right.
So, and this is really what we have been talking about for a long time with regard to Nesara and that type of thing. Now we've got a worthless dollar for the most part. I mean, it's been worthless for a long time. It's lost from, I mean, just look at the loss of its value from 1971 when they got us off the gold standard. It just went off the cliff. But the one thing that was keeping it together was the petrodollar, and that's over.
Right.
And so now we have all these trillions of dollars coming home to roost, and those are instruments of debt. It's pretty grim. And now everyone is adopting, even Mexico wants to be part of BRICS. And who wouldn't? It's sound money. It sounds like a great idea.
Absolutely.
Here they are with the CBDC. XRP just won the suit. I mean, look at the timing of all this. This didn't just naturally happen. But given all of those pieces on the board, where do you think it's going?
I'm struggling a little with this. I had to look at this up here. Now, first off, CBDC is central bank digital currency. Okay. So let's back up. When you just look at that first off, okay, and I say, what does that align with more? Does it align more with with the Great Reset that wants to have a global currency, a one world currency utilized that could be shut off and shut on, or turned on, turned off? Or does it align with a decentralized nation by nation currency? And I go, no, that leans toward the Great Reset kind of idiots. And I go, so that's not what we're talking about. So I go, CBDC is with the idiots. Okay, so that's not it. So then I look over with Fed Now. Okay, so then I looked at Fed Now just a little bit. And there's a lot of controversy with that. First off, what Fed Now is trying to do is it's like a $28 fee to set up, and then it's trying to make transactions pretty quicker. It's trying to be like XRP, Ripple thing, but it looks like it's trying to be competition to XRP Ripple thing. And I'm going, okay, why do we have to have competition with XRP and Ripple? And I'm just kind of looking at that going, why do we have to have that competition? Because the banks are upset about it, but there's a transaction fee every single time you do that. And I'm going, okay, that's kind of interesting. So there's two possibilities here. And again, I don't know which way this goes, because in Scott's book, first off, who's doing it? The Fed is the enemy. Okay. The Fed is the thing that has been clearly stated in Nesara will be dead. Okay. So I don't like Fed Now. So therefore I don't like you. But we know that we have to have a transmission between the banking structures. Okay, so we need to have, if we need to move monies from bank A to B, because Scott and Joe gives money between the two of us. Great. They give money between the two of us. Well, then we've got to have some transmission between them. In the past, we had the Fed that moves the money back and forth. If you watched our past show, you would have heard our talk conversation about that. But if we delete the Fed, then we don't have any transmission there. Enter XRP. Okay, so we have that possibility there. But why do we need Fed now if the Fed is there, right? Why do we need that? Unless, so why are we asking for the Fed now ever? I mean, if the Fed exists, why do we need Fed now? Because so they're trying to say why, I mean, they're trying to use a possible replacement of Ripple and XRP. Then I go, oh no, screw you. I'm not using a replacement of those kinds of things.
Yes.
So what I'm listening in my head, they're telling me we're trying to replace it. So that is a cabal-based kind of system. This is just Scott pontificating. Okay, just listening to Scott thinking this through. Okay. Or it's now some people, I've heard some truthers who don't really understand Nesara. Now, there's a lot of people who don't really understand Nesara and think Fed now is how we're gonna utilize everything. And I'm going, you don't understand. And by the way, there's a whole group of people who, you know, are just focused on this thing called the revaluation, and they're so focused on it, but they don't understand anything else.
Yeah.
And they're sitting over here and they're going, you know, they don't understand the IRS is gone, the Fed is gone, the presidency is gone, the whole systems are gone, the legal system is redone. You know, they don't get any of that stuff, right? And all of these systems have to be redone. And if you don't redo those things, you don't get a gold-backed currency. Okay. So you've got to fix those things, or you don't get any of those situations coming in toward, you know, humanity in essence in that way. So I believe that my instinct, my feeling in my gut is really telling me the Fed now is the ugly part of it. It's them trying to say, we're trying to replace XRP. And I'm going, no, we don't need you.
Well, there's a lot of speculation that it is indeed powered by XRP. That is the very technology.
Hey man, if it is, I'm all over it. If it really is, then I'm fine with it.
But it's still a tremendous invasion of privacy. You'll be taxed at the transaction level, and they can, if they don't like what you're doing, you know, they
well,
can.
but it does have to. But here's the thing: it does have to have some level of transaction from a bank to bank point. It really does. That there has to be. No, banks would have to get transaction between the two banks. Does that make sense? I mean, so if we move back, you know, money from bank to bank, they have to, you know, that costs a transaction fee there. So that I don't care if banks have to pay transaction fees between the two of them for them to exist, but I'm not paying the transaction fee.
They don't need to exist anymore, though, not with these technologies. You know, I mean, the necessity for a bank is.
But here's the other point that I would say to you. The QFS is going to change this whole process, because the QFS is a portal through. Okay, the QFS is my internal portal through that. If you will utilize the QFS, it is your banking point. And I can go through the QFS as my pure banking point, and I could be in the middle of the Congo, and I could utilize that and not have to use anything like XRP. And I mean, forgive me, but I'm going to just tell you how it actually could work. The QFS could actually be my thing and for a coffee business. Well, that sounds kind of crazy in a hot place like that, but a cold coffee in the Congo, and I have a QFS account, and I'm going to charge $1.50. I'm making up something, okay? $1.50 to my customers, right? And we use QFS accounts. Boom, boom, and they do it back and forth, and there's no banking. there's just QFS to QFS, QFS to QFS, and it's QFSing back and forth. And there is 0 transaction fee points to one another.
But some people have to reconcile that in lightning speed for that to work.
It's QFSing, and that's what it's supposed. That's what the QFS was supposed to be, and that's what it is supposed to be. The only time we have to get in to have the XRP point that I believe that we would have the XRP point would be in there is if we get into the banking point to have the transaction between the banks.
But I think XRP, if I'm understanding it properly, like especially for cross-border payments, which you know how Trump kept talking about level playing field. Well, think of that in terms of trade. And now it's like if you're going to set up a factory, you're going to set up in the Far East or China or whatever for your auto, probably Mexico. But there are very specific reasons why you're kind of shoehorned into doing things in a certain way. And it has an awful lot to do with these financial policies that don't make a lot of sense. But if you make the best mousetrap and you live in Zimbabwe, with XRP, you might as well build a factory in your hometown or whatever. It literally doesn't matter. But there's a ubiquitous platform that's gonna bolster trade because there's no vampiring money off it. With the SWIFT system,
but here's what's probable. I mean, this is the probability. Again, guys, you're going to sit here and go, why are you talking this way? We're pontificating. Don't get too freaked out about this. Okay. We're just kind of pontificating back and forth. Okay. We're and that's what's the fun part about it. These are three guys just kind of, batting it back and forth. Like we're badmintoning back and forth from about 1,000 miles away. But the point is that for in your circumstance, if we're going from America to Zimbabwe on something, we might XLM that one because that's our connector, because that's the perfect connector point. And then we would QFS it down over here, the QFSing back and forth here throughout the nation. And then we XLM back and forth to America, and then QFS down here, but then we need some banking modalities around America. So when we XRP around America for some other banking modalities, then we QFS down over here to our customers in America, and then we XLM across the sea to Zimbabwe, and then we QFS down to our accounts down here. I'm just throwing out some ideas of ways that we do that. Now, if we have that little tiny account in the Congo that just does her made coffees, she might just QFS all by herself and not need anything else but her QFS account back and forth.
So what is the currency in just the QFS? Whatever anyone wants to use, basically?
Well, no, her currency would be the Congo currency, her decentralized Congo currency. So her treasury, the treasury of the Congo. See, and that's why, one of the key elements that I'm real picky on about not being XRP as a currency. Today, like I said before, today XRP is a currency, okay? But in the future, common law, and we're just going to talk about America for just for the heck of it, okay? Sure. But specifically in our Constitution, it stipulates that only Congress can make the money. The Treasury was created, and I want to say 1789. Someone might mess me up on that, Matt, if I get that wrong. But it was one of the very first institutions created in America. And it was created as the congressional throughport of our money. Okay. So we created this thing called the dollar that was gold backed. So it was the legal tender point. Okay. So that that it was a recognizable point that we would utilize, so that we wouldn't use chickens kind of thing as that point, because someone else couldn't kind of corner the market. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so if we utilize a private entity such as XRP, that becomes a private company, that becomes a new global private entity that would corner the market with that, and that would turn into the new cabal. And so that's why I'm pretty heavily against that as that circumstance. But I am super for them being anything as transactional between banks or cross borders. And I don't care how much money they make. I hope they make a ton of money in that way. I hope they charge through the yin yang over borders and stuff like that. But I want the freedom for that little lady in the Congo to utilize her whatever monetary source of the Congo, but she's using the if they call it the dollar there, but she can use her QFS dollar through the QFS.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah. No, thanks for
Lot of
clarifying that,
possibilities.
because I was trying to wrap my head around what was being changed in their QFS. So,
But we want to, but see, the whole point of a currency is we want to detach it from a debt system.
right.
See, every other time in history, this is what Hamilton actually, and this is the hardest part about this, right when George Washington allowed Hamilton to do, is we started to create, a debt system. And no one ever understood this, that Washington did, is he created the debt system. And then the War of 1812 was our first bankruptcy point. And the bankruptcy happened in the War of 1812 when we said we didn't want to pay up. And the British came over and they fought us over, and we finally said, oh, fine, we'll pay you back. And they left. And then 1836, they came over and we had another bankruptcy event. And we had Andrew Jackson. By the way, Trump has a picture of Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
And the reason why is that Andrew Jackson took his cane and beat the snot out of the guys over that. And he broke his cane over the bankers. It's because, and we had some of the biggest growth over that issue. And that's what Trump is going to be, is that kind of growth functionary. And we're going to see that same kind of growth issue post, if Lincoln would have lived, but we had a huge growth issue that could have happened after Lincoln, right? And then, the cabal took over in, 1871 from that point on with that. But we need to see that tie from the government, for the people, by the people, right? And not a private agency who would have the ability to have a decentralized type of currency. And that's what the QFS is supposed to be, a gold-backed currency made a constitutional way. So
Excellent. I mean, with that description, how can you
Yeah.
go wrong? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Last
moment,
minute.
yeah.
It's been awesome. Anything else we want to close with? And obviously, where do people can find you, etc.
Yeah, so it's at drscottyoung.com, and you can also say Dr. Scott, our Telegram is Dr. Scott Nesara. So you can kind of find us there. But guys, I got to tell you, I mean, I say this all the time. If you have no hope, I know the feeling, okay, but I get up at 4 and 5 in the morning. And the reason why I get up at 4 and 5 in the morning is I'm in prayer, okay, and I lay out. I had no hope about a year ago because I was hopeless, because I was in the middle of this really difficult financial situation. And so one of the things that I did is I learned that hope is this really fragile thing. And it's like this thing that sits in the middle of a little field, okay? And you've got to build a fence around your hope. And it's called faith, okay? And the faith has got to have a very strong shield, okay? And in scripture, there's this thing called stasis or hypostasis. And so faith is, and Hebrews, it says, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the promise of things unseen. By the way, that's exactly what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
We have the substance of something that we can kind of feel, and so it's the faith is the substance of things hoped for, and we can kind of taste it, we can kind of feel it, right? But we can't. People ask me all the time, like they say, like, how do you look for it? How can you find it? And like, you can kind of feel it, you can kind of see it, but you're not really there yet.
Yeah.
I've kind of lived my whole life.
Well, it certainly describes the moment we find ourselves in now. So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Great analogy.
Sure.
Well, thank you, Dr. Young. We appreciate you. And I love your talking about, Biden and his ears. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to talk about that at length on the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll be having you back down the road too. So
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, brother.
Thanks, man.
All right. We'll talk soon. Take care.
See ya.
All right. Cheers.